Really helps though with the networking as well,
Yes.
future job employment and stuff. The name of the game is networking to an extent.
Areas. So we travel out to Chattanooga.
Like a college recruiter, it sounds like.
Kind of, yeah, it kind of
They
is.
recommend 40 hours a week minimum when you're studying for the bar. So, it's
Exactly.
literally a full-time job at that point.
And the Parachute Packers Bar Prep Scholarship, that's the full name.
I don't want to know where the name came from. That sounds... Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Weekly Law Roundup on Praise Radio, WJBZ 96.3 FM here in Knoxville, Tennessee. My name is Dylan Shelton. Unfortunately, T. Scott Jones is actually in a trial this week, so I will be your host for the day, and I'm honored to be hosting tonight's show. Our guest this evening is Kasey Wasson, Director of Development for Lincoln Memorial University's Duncan School of Law. Kasey is a proud LMU graduate, former Lady Rail Splitter golfer, LMU Law alumna, and practicing attorney who's now come full circle to give back to the school that helped launch her career. We'll talk about her journey, her new role, and what's ahead for LMU Law tonight. If you have any questions for Kasey tonight, you can text us at 865-556-7218 or call the station at 865-577-4885. Kasey, welcome to the show, and thanks for being here.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. And I guess to start us off here, tell our listeners a little bit about your background and your journey that has led you into the role you're in today.
Yes, so I am a double LMU grad. Graduated from the undergraduate program back in 2013. Played on the golf team, which was just a lot of fun. Graduated from LMU Law School in 2020, which was equally as fun. And now I'm back working for them in university advancement.
Okay.
And so I work with alumni, and I do fundraising events and all that for the law school. So I'm really glad to be there.
And I guess when people hear the word fundraising, they often think it's just asking for money. What does the actual fundraising go towards? So, it's not just asking for money to go into the coffers of LMU. What are the actual applications of the fundraising money, I guess?
Right. So kind of the traditional one that you think of with higher education are scholarships, and that's certainly something that we fundraise for at LMU Law School. We actually just celebrated a new scholarship today, a new endowed scholarship, which is going to benefit a rural Tennessee student to go to Duncan School of Law.
Wow.
So that is, kind of one of the traditional things that we raise money for. But we also have a lot of programs and initiatives at the law school that are more directly impacting students. And we kind of say that these are how you can really help students directly. And one of those is the Student Public Interest Fellowship, which we started last year. We're in our second year of that. And basically what we're doing is raising money to provide students with a living stipend for the summer. Students that are taking public interest internships that are traditionally unpaid. So legal aid, public defender's office, district attorney's office. We try to help them out by helping them with rent, gas, groceries, things like that, so that they are able to take public interest work rather than private work. And so that's a new one. We have an annual fundraiser for that every March. And it's an auction that we hold at the law school. It's been a lot of fun. We're growing.
Is it a silent auction or?
It's both, actually. Okay. We have silent auction items, and we also have a live auction. And a lot of that is we're auctioning off experiences with our faculty. So professors will
pretty low bids, huh?
Some of them are a little low. We got to start getting those up. But our professors will donate experiences like taking students to ice cream or Top Golf or things like that, ways that they can spend time with students and connect with them.
So develop that relationship.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
And it allows students to kind of pull together and as a group.
Are these auctions open to the public as well?
They are,
Okay.
yes, absolutely. Last year we had a large group of alumni. It was sponsored by the new DSAL Alumni Association, which has been kicked off this past year and is doing great. They're really growing alumni connections in the area. And so they were our presenting sponsor for the event. And so we had alumni, we had a couple local judges, attorneys, law firms. So it's been a really fun community networking social event too.
Yeah, and maybe for our listeners that may not know, I mean, LMU Duncan School of Law is a relatively new law school. I mean, that's
Yes.
kind of why the fundraising is so important, as well as we don't have those established donors yet to an extent. What year was DSAL actually initiated?
2009.
Okay,
And so our first graduating class was 2013.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're just now, beginning to get those, alumni, returns back, I guess you could call it. I mean, they're now in the positions of, importance or kind of making money now, I guess. So they have that opportunity to give back.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. I mean, the impact of having, some type of scholarship to give back and, get someone through a summer and let them still be able to pursue their interest in the law is kind of amazing, instead of having to work, an unrelated part-time job or something to that effect. I am very interested in that. That's very cool.
Yeah, and it really goes towards our mission of, serving underserved communities. Encouraging our students and enabling them to be able to take public interest work, indigent work, because that's difficult when you're a student and you don't have an income. It's difficult to choose to take unpaid work, but really that experience is priceless.
Yeah, and that's another thing about Duncan School of Law, which is kind of different than most law schools, as well as like they're directed towards keeping the lawyers in the Appalachia area rather than moving back home to where they came from, or they try to help these underserved communities here in rural Appalachia, and I would say they're actually doing a rather good job at that. I mean, a lot of attorneys that you run into, younger attorneys, are normally Duncan School of Law attorneys around here a lot of times. So
yeah, they are. And we actually did a study just this past year to try to figure out what percentage of our alumni are in rural counties in Tennessee and what percentage are doing public interest work. And of course, I cannot remember the statistics, but I can at least summarize that it is an overwhelming amount of our alumni that are in rural areas and are doing public interest work.
How much of that goes, do you believe, into the selection process of the students that are let in to Duncan School of Law? And how much of that is kind of, sewn into them through the ethos of the school throughout their time there?
That's a great question. And I'm not really sure. I work geographically close to admissions. My office is on the admissions hallway, but I don't always know exactly, what their processes are.
Yeah.
But certainly there's been a trend, especially this year. We have record-breaking applicants. We have tons of new applicants, and we have a really large incoming class this fall. So, I'm not sure. We have certainly more students coming from different areas. I do think that they recognize that LMU is really focused on, serving underserved communities and that kind of law practice. Yeah. That being said, the landscape is changing. The school's growing a lot. And so I hope that really stays at the core of the program.
Absolutely. I mean, what is something about, I guess we're kind of already covering it, but what is something about LMU Law that you wish people here in East Tennessee knew about it?
I think the biggest thing is that it's such a community feel, and you can probably speak to this as well, having graduated from there. You really feel closely connected with faculty, and at least in my experience, having gone there, there's not this intense feeling of competition that I think you feel at a lot of law schools.
Yep.
You feel like everyone is pulling for you.
Yep.
the faculty really care. You know, they want their students to succeed. It's not this cutthroat experience.
I feel like, the best thing about it too is I feel like study groups were really, emphasized there. And, when you have your study groups and stuff, unlike other law schools, I feel, you're meeting other people, one, and then two, you're more willing to, help the other person because you're in that group. If the group does well, you normally do well. I feel like that's a big thing that's lacking in a lot of other schools is, you kind of get in these cliques at these other schools where, you're afraid to jump from, study group to study group, and that's one thing I think they emphasize as well is that, try out a study group. If it doesn't work for you, you can study on your own or you can try a different study group. It looks like we have a comment on the board here from Martha Baker. I hope you're doing well, Marty. I need help with a homeless lady to get a divorce that has no money. What we have had the runaround. Please advise. Well, Miss Baker, if you will give us a little bit more information on what you mean by the runaround, we'd be more than happy to discuss that with you. But in the interim, while we wait on that comment there, we will continue. Let's see here. I apologize. I lost my train of thought here. What are some of the biggest challenges, I guess, LMU students face today? Do you think it's mostly monetary, or do you think anything else other than that?
I think certainly, being in law school, struggling with finances is something that a lot of students do deal with, and it's a stressful time in your life, and you have to balance, your student loans and your studies and, keeping track of, your internships and thinking about the bar exam, thinking about employment. And, I think at least historically, at LMU Law School, a lot of our students, including myself, are first-generation college students. And so, you go in not really knowing what the path of law school and afterward, what that looks like. And so I think that is a challenge that a lot face, but that also, kind of gives you a sense of community too, that a lot of other LMU students are in a similar boat.
I was literally about to say the same thing. You're kind of leaning on each other to kind of row the boat together, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Because, nobody knows the exact path forward, but, together as a collective, you should get there one way or the other, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. Oh, man. Let's see here. How does one identify some opportunities where they can maybe make an impact at the school, whether it be through donations? I guess, I don't know if there's volunteer work opportunities or what have you. What is one way that they can get in touch with you or with LMU? Is there a website? Is there some way they can research this stuff on their own? How can they be of benefit to LMU?
Absolutely. Well, I encourage anyone interested in getting involved to reach out to me directly. I will happily take any help, any support. We actually do have a lot of opportunities for that. We often have programs in career services where we have alumni or community attorneys come and speak to students. We have networking events, and we're about to kick off a few of those this fall where we have really small, intimate networking opportunities for students to connect with attorneys in our area. We like to host panels where attorneys can kind of talk about their practice, give students an idea of what it's like out there in the real world.
Of course.
That's certainly extremely valuable to our students to be able to have that face-to-face time with other attorneys. Another thing, we've actually just started a new initiative at the school that was spearheaded by two alums from the class of 2022. They became inspired because they had faced their own struggles during bar preparation. And
as we all do.
Yes, absolutely. And during law school, and they certainly faced challenges being in law school during COVID-19.
Could not imagine.
And so they came up with the idea to start a bar prep scholarship, which is basically a way to provide students, recent graduates actually, a living stipend for the summer as they prepare for the bar exam. Okay. Because a lot of students are, struggling financially during that time. They're running out of financial aid during that summer, and they're extremely stressed out and they need to study basically like it's a full-time job.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think they recommend 40 hours a week minimum when you're studying for the bar. So, I mean, it's
Exactly.
literally a full-time job at that point.
Yeah.
So, I know we've gone over 2 new scholarships and stuff. Are there any new initiatives or other areas of growth that you are hopeful or alumni can support that are coming up or are in the works right now?
Yeah, so those are kind of our 2 big new initiatives, the Student Public Interest Fellowship and the Parachute Packers Bar Prep Scholarship. That's the full name.
I don't want to know where the name came from. That sounds...
It came from an old anecdote by former Dean Judge Gary Wade.
Okay.
And I don't want to butcher the story because I will not do it justice. But that's what these alumni kind of were inspired by is, how they can help current students and, support our alumni base as a whole. And so we've got the Bar Prep Scholarship and the Student Public Interest Fellowship. And those are really 2 initiatives that directly help students. We allow students to apply for the scholarships. They kind of tell us what their need is, how it's going to help them, what their plans are, what kind of internship they're going to take. And we really try to look for students that are passionate about public interest work, that, might pursue that as a career and that will really benefit from the stipend. And so we were able
directly giving back to the community in a sense.
Exactly. Yeah. And so we were able to award, I believe, 11 stipends for the summer for students in public interest internships.
Wow.
And so that's been a really rewarding thing to get to see as students that are, doing indigent work, doing, community work that's essential, and getting to learn from it, get that experience, and,
Absolutely.
Hopefully pursue that one day after law school. And then this summer we were able to provide 6 stipends for bar prep. And so that's been really great to, help students focus on their studies, get through a really tough summer.
Better to do it once than twice, I guess, is the old saying.
Yes.
Do it right the first time. Absolutely. That extra help can go a long way. That is for sure.
And we also have a third initiative that's been around, I think, probably since the school started, but it's the Student Emergency Fund. And it's basically just a fund that's available to students that experience unexpected hardships. They can apply for it, get a little assistance throughout the school year to help them, with emergencies or, anything that comes up. And so those are really our big 3 that really benefit students directly.
And can a donor reach out to you and I guess direct which one they want their proceeds to go towards?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, that is awesome.
In fact, I would love that.
I love that. And I guess the other question is, if you are donating to that, are they able to select, the criteria, or is that something more, I guess you would probably want more of that to be, involved with the school itself, letting the school know, because they know the needs of the students more, and that's not really information that obviously a third party should know to begin with. And
yes,
is that more of what you all do over there?
Yes. So we like to establish committees that help with selecting which students or graduates are going to be awarded the stipends or scholarships. The faculty that are working directly with students are better equipped to determine, who has the need, what the needs of each student are. And so we like to rely on, faculty and staff to kind of make those decisions.
And that's kind of the great thing over at LMU as well as, the professors, even though they may be the dean of, certain areas over there, they're always teaching classes as well. So they've always have that, student interactment over there. So they kind of really have the pulse of the cohort, I guess you could say. And
they really do.
And that's one amazing thing also about LMU is, they are starting to get, I guess, to the class sizes of other law schools now. But I don't see that's really affected it at all, though, and its initiative and, kind of the camaraderie that you kind of experience over there. So
yeah, it really really doesn't seem to have affected the community feel or the investment that professors really put in the students.
Right, absolutely.
Really doesn't seem that way.
That's amazing. What else can you tell us about, I guess, your role over there and I guess the relationship that you do cultivate with donors and stuff? How do you go about getting out in the community and, seeking out these donors and, just, I guess, how your day-to-day job looks?
Yeah, so it can be a little different every day. We do a little traveling. Dean Lyon and I have been basically on a tour this summer, visiting with alumni in different areas. So we travel out to Chattanooga.
Like a college recruiter, it sounds like.
Kind of, yeah, it kind of is. I just, the alumni get my emails like, we're going to be in your area. You better come see us.
Oh, my goodness.
But we went to Chattanooga, Nashville, Sevierville. Where else did we go? We went to Cookeville, Clarksville. Basically cities where we have pockets of alumni.
Of course.
And so we've also visited DC, Atlanta, areas kind of where we have several alumni. Yeah. And we just, honestly, we really try to connect with as many as we can. We encourage them to stay involved with us, to mentor students, to give back, to come to our events, to serve on the Alumni Association board. We do a lot of visiting. We do a lot of visiting.
I mean, that really helps, though, with the networking as well.
Yes.
For future job employment and stuff. I mean, the name of the game is networking to an extent, I guess.
It absolutely is.
I'm assuming you're doing luncheons and stuff of that nature with these and, cultivating those relationships with those alumni, correct?
Yes, absolutely. And I work closely, too, with career services because we're always trying to get our students hired, get them in internships and employment after law school as well. Yeah. And so our alumni are really a great resource for that.
Kind of is the hard thing with Knoxville. It is a saturated market to an extent. I mean, you've got two competing law schools in the same market, not to mention, Tennessee has how many law schools now? Is it LMU, Knoxville, Memphis, Belmont, and Nashville School of Law? So we have 5 law schools now in Tennessee.
Yeah.
And
and Memphis, I'm not sure if you caught that.
Did I not say mention? Is that 6? I mean, that is a saturated market there that we're dealing with. So every networking.
Yeah, and there's still a lot of legal deserts in the state as well. Lots of rural counties that really need lawyers, that really need, indigent lawyers and, lawyers to take court appointments and, we need to fill those needs.
I believe, I cannot recall which county it is, but they are trying to enact a new appointed work over in that county as like a trial for the whole state. And I cannot remember the county to save my life, but it's because of the lack of appointments that they have. I mean, these judges have a list of, people that they can, point to appoint the cases where you just go to the judge and has to be on the list. But apparently that county is lacking so badly that, unfortunately they are trying to enroll that. So, I mean, it is 100% a legal desert out there in a lot of areas, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But, oh my goodness. What else, I guess, so what does, working with career services look like then?
Well, so career services I think it's been about 1.5 years. We have a new director of career services, Caitlin Torney.
Okay.
She came over from Legal Aid of East Tennessee, and she's fantastic. She works with students. She reviews resumes. She connects with people in the community to, match students with internships.
And I think that's one thing a lot of our listeners would not understand is a legal resume is completely different than a regular resume, which is a big shocker, I know. But, that was one thing, going into law school that, we do our, initiation and everything. And then when it's time to apply for jobs, we have career services, which is great. And they kind of tell you, outline what your resume needs to look like and stuff. And we'll review it for you and stuff as well, which is amazing. But that was one thing that I am so thankful that we did have. I mean, it really does, open your eyes to what is expected of you, one, in the real world, and then two, it also helps you get into the real world, I guess you could say, to an extent. It helps you get your foot in the door through the networking that, our alumni have done, and the relationships they've cultivated with other attorneys in the field, which is it's a necessity. I mean, if you're going to have a good law school, I guess you could say.
Yes, yeah. The strong alumni network is invaluable to students, and with a young law school, we have around 900 and something alumni total. That's relatively small, but it's rapidly growing, and I think starting now and building a really strong alumni network is really, really important.
Honestly, I would never have believed the 900 and something alumni, to be honest with you. I would have thought it was much higher. Like I said, I mean, I deal with a lot of LMU attorneys on a day in, day out basis. So that actually surprises me. I mean, I know we had smaller class sizes in the beginning, so we're just now getting to, equal class sizes to other law schools. But that actually surprises me. Wow.
I think that's going to rapidly change in the coming years, especially with the new part-time hybrid program. Well, relatively new. It's been going for a couple years now, but that's a mostly remote law school program that's asynchronous. So it's kind of directed for working individuals so that they're able to work and do law school, when they're able to do, at night or, at their own schedule, at their own pace. They do have to come into campus twice a semester for a weekend of in-person classes. But that's really going to change, where our alumni are based geographically, because we now have part-time hybrid students that are all over the country. Yeah. And so, and we're
kind of helping out with the other legal deserts throughout the U.S. to an extent, to be honest with you.
Absolutely. And so I think the incoming part-time class is, I think we have about 60 coming in. So that's going to change. LMU is growing.
That is, it's great news.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It is great.
Well, I guess we are ending our time. I'm getting the whiteboard telling me to wrap it up here. So, Kasey, it's been an outstanding conversation. Thank you for sharing your experience and what you're working on over there. I wish you the best with it, and it sounds like great things are yet to come. This will wrap up our weekly law roundup. Be sure to join us next week right here at Praise Radio, WJBZ 96.3 FM.
I played golf with him actually in a LMU event, like a little scramble. Yeah.
He seems like a pretty pleasant gentleman. He just seems really nice.
His wife is also super nice. She's actually like kind of a big deal. She's